You're not supposed to hear knocking from underground, but I did. It started with my cousin Rafiq's funeral. We buried him on a cold November evening. He was 28, newly married, and perfectly healthy. He dropped dead in the middle of his shift at a construction site. Heart attack, they said. No family history, no warnings. Just collapsed and never got back up. We're from a small village in northern Pakistan. Tight-knit, religious, cautious of superstition. When someone dies, you don't question much. You grieve, bury, and move on. That's tradition. But Rafiq's death never sat right with me. First off, the body had no signs of trauma. No blood, no bruises. But there was this expression on his face, like pure terror. Eyelids stretched, mouth frozen mid-scream. I've seen dead people before, old relatives, road accidents, but never anything like this. His father insisted we bury him quickly before sundown. I wanted to ask questions, but I respected the elder. We wrapped the body, performed the janazah prayer, and lowered him into the ground. I tossed in the final handful of dirt myself. That should have been the end, but it was only the beginning. 3 nights later, I was alone in my room around 1:30 a.m., going through old photos of Rafiq on my phone. I felt guilty. We were more like brothers than cousins. He always stood up for me when others mocked my quiet nature. I should have spent more time with him when he was alive. That's when I heard the knocking. 3 sharp, deliberate knocks from underneath the floorboards. I froze. I live in a brick house. No crawl space, no basement. Just concrete below. But the sound was clear, rhythmic, like someone punching a wooden coffin from the inside. I tried to tell myself it was a dream, or rats, or maybe pipes. But I couldn't shake this dread growing inside me like a cold fever. The next morning, I went to Rafiq's grave before sunrise. I needed closure. I wanted to believe I was just mourning, that grief was messing with my mind. But when I reached the graveyard, my blood ran cold. His grave looked disturbed. The soil was sunken in. There were scratch marks on the stone slab, like fingernails dragged across wet cement. I reported it to his father. He dismissed me, said animals must have dug around, told me to stop thinking like a city boy. But I couldn't let it go. A week passed, then another. That's when strange things began happening at night. I find my front gate open in the mornings, even though I locked it before bed. Sometimes, I'd wake up to muddy footprints on the patio. Human-sized footprints. One night, I heard someone sobbing outside my window. I peeked through the curtain, heart in my throat. Rafiq was standing there. His burial shroud was soaked in dirt. His skin was pale, lips cracked, eyes bloodshot. But it was him, except not really him. He was crying, but the tears weren't tears. They were thick, black drops that slid down his face like oil. And then he whispered, "You buried me alive." I didn't open the window. I couldn't move. I just watched as he slowly walked into the trees and vanished into the dark. The next morning, I called for help. I told the village council, told the elders, begged them to exhume the grave. They thought I was possessed. They brought in an imam to pray over me. No one believed a word I said. But then, something happened that forced everyone to face the truth. Rafiq's mother vanished. She was last seen lighting candles in the prayer room. Her slippers were still there. But she was gone, vanished without a trace. No break-in, no sign of struggle. Only a trail of wet soil leading from the room to the front door. That night, the entire village gathered at the graveyard. We exhumed Rafiq's coffin. It was empty. Only the burial cloth remained, torn, soaked in black liquid, and smelling like rot and burnt hair. That's when the imam turned pale. He said something ancient had taken Rafiq, something that mimics the dead, a cursed spirit that can take over a body if the soul is trapped and unable to pass on. He said sometimes, if the body is buried before its time, the soul never leaves, and the thing that enters it instead is not human. We held a second ritual, a purification. We burned the torn shroud and recited verses all night. The imam warned us, if the spirit has taken root, it will come for the bloodline. Since then, 2 more people in my family have died. One choked to death in his sleep. Another fell into a well with no cover. Unexplained. Sudden. I moved far away. Changed my name. Live alone. But every year, on the night Rafiq died, I hear the knocks again. 3 knocks. Always at 1:30 a.m. Always from beneath the floor. And now they're getting louder. They say feeling watched is just paranoia. But what if you're right? I didn't believe in anything paranormal. No ghosts, demons, or shadows in the dark. I was a rational man. Science teacher. Lived alone. Quiet life. That was until I moved into the house on Gulmohar Lane. It was cheap, suspiciously so, A two-story colonial house with ivy crawling up the bricks, antique wood floors, and tall windows that groaned at night. I should have asked more questions, but I was broke and needed to move in fast. The first night was quiet. Too quiet. I remember lying in bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above, when I had the weirdest sensation, like someone was staring at me from the door. I turned. No one was there. Brushed it off. But from the second night on, I started waking up every morning feeling exhausted. Like I hadn't slept at all. I'd find my bedsheet on the floor, pillows displaced, drawers half open. I chalked it up to sleepwalking, even though I never had a history of it. Then came the scratches. Every morning, tiny scratches on the wooden floor, just at the foot of the bed. Parallel lines. Fresh. Sharp. I started locking my bedroom door at night. But every morning, it would be unlocked. One morning, I found muddy footprints leading into my room from the inside of the house. I live alone. Always have. I checked the front door, still locked. Windows? Still latched. It didn't make sense. That's when I installed the camera. Not for ghosts, just to see if I was sleepwalking. I set it up on a tripod, pointed it at my bed, and let it roll overnight. The footage nearly sent me into shock. Around 2:13 a.m., I saw myself tossing in bed, blanket slipping off. At 2:34 a.m., the doorknob slowly turned. It wasn't abrupt or ghostly, just slow, deliberate. And then he stepped in a frame. A man, mid-50s maybe, pale, bald, wearing a ragged hospital gown. He crawled into the room, on all fours, like a starving animal. His spine jutted unnaturally under his skin, and his head tilted every few seconds as if his neck had trouble holding it up. He sat next to my bed and just watched me sleep. For 4 hours straight. Never moved. Never blinked. Just watched. At 6:13 a.m., he crawled out again. I rewound the footage again and again, convinced I was hallucinating. I wasn't. The next night, I set 2 cameras. One at the door, one near my window. He came back. This time, he stood at the foot of my bed, staring. And I swear on everything, he was smiling. I went to the police. Showed them the footage. They thought it was a prank. Suggested maybe it was a friend messing with me. I didn't have friends. Not close ones. Certainly none who would break into my house and sit next to me for hours. They offered a patrol car to check in occasionally. That was it. I bought new locks, set up motion alarms. But every morning, the door was open. Alarms disabled. The man never left prints. Never made noise. But I could feel him every single night. So I stopped sleeping altogether. For days, I sat in a chair with a bat in hand, cameras rolling, lights on. He didn't come those nights. I thought maybe he'd gone, until I passed out from exhaustion. And he returned. This time he brought something. In the video, at 3:04 a.m., he walked in with a small mirror. He placed it against the wall, facing my bed. Then he stood in front of it, watching himself, and watching me. His smile was bigger. His hands were trembling. Suddenly, he turned to the camera and looked straight into it, like he knew I was watching. He pointed to the mirror. Then, without warning, he slammed his head into it. Over and over. The glass cracked, his blood smeared across it. But he never made a sound. It was like he was trying to open something. And then he vanished. I ran. Left the house the next morning with just my wallet and phone. Stayed at a hotel 30 kilometers away. Didn't sleep for 2 days. Then, against my better judgment, I called a spiritual advisor. He told me the man I saw wasn't a man. He said mirrors are portals. Ancient ones. That certain entities, human once, maybe get trapped in them when they die violently or unnaturally. If they're strong enough, they can visit places connected to their death. The previous owner of the house was a mental patient. Escaped a psychiatric ward in the 1980s. Lived in that house for 2 months before slicing his own throat in front of a large mirror. I hadn't known. No one told me. The advisor warned me. The more I watched him, the stronger he became. He said the entity feeds on attention, like a parasite, and I had been feeding him nightly. That night, in the hotel, I turned on the bathroom light and saw the mirror fogged up. There was a message scrawled into it. You look better when you sleep. I left that hotel within minutes. Burned the camera footage. Changed my number. Moved again. Don't stay anywhere more than a few weeks. Never keep mirrors uncovered. Never sleep without light. But I still feel it. That pull. That presence. And sometimes late at night, when I'm too tired to keep my eyes open, I feel it. I always thought my uncle was weird, but I never thought he was hiding something like this. He passed away last winter. Natural causes, they said. No foul play. But if you saw the state of his house, you'd understand why I never believed it was natural. He was a recluse, lived alone in his countryside cottage for almost 30 years. No kids. No wife. Barely spoke to anyone. I was the only one he kept in touch with, even if our conversations were few and far between. So when the will named me executor of his estate, I wasn't surprised. I took a week off work and drove out to his property. That's when everything started to spiral. The house was colder inside than outside. Dust clung to everything. Cobwebs draped over the furniture like a funeral veil. And yet, it felt like someone had just been there. Coffee mug on the table. Curtains open. Fireplace still had a faint scent of burnt wood. I was there to sort through things, maybe sell the place. But I found something odd on the first night, a locked door in the basement. It wasn't just locked. It was sealed with heavy chains and padlocks that looked new. I didn't remember that door from when I visited him as a kid. And my uncle? He wasn't exactly the handyman type. The chains were overkill. Naturally, I want to know what was behind it. Took me 2 days to find the keys, hidden behind a loose brick in the fireplace. One key had a red thread tied to it. Felt important. I wish I hadn't touched it. When I finally unchained the basement door, I hesitated. The moment the key clicked, I felt a pressure in my ears, like the air changed. Like the house knew what I was doing. I opened it anyway. The room was pitch black. No light switch. Just a faint musty smell, damp wood, rotting cloth, and something metallic. I used my phone's flashlight. That's when I saw the drawings. The walls were covered in symbols, etched in chalk, charcoal, and something that looked suspiciously like dried blood. Circles, triangles, eyes, crosses. They covered every inch, floor to ceiling. Even the ceiling fan had carvings on its blades. In the center of the room, an old wooden chair, bolted to the floor with leather straps, like something out of a psychiatric ward. Surrounding it were jars, dozens of them. Inside each was something: teeth, hair, little bones, and each jar had a tag with a date and a name. I backed out immediately, closed the door, locked it, tried to tell myself it was some sort of art project, some twisted coping mechanism. Maybe my uncle had mental health issues he never shared. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that. Because that night, the chair moved. I heard it at 2:48 a.m., a loud screech, like wood scraping against concrete. I thought maybe a raccoon got in, grabbed a flashlight, and went down. The basement was still, silent, except the sealed room's door was wide open, and the chair was no longer in the middle. It was facing the door. My heart dropped. I knew I locked that door, relocked the chains, went back to bed, but I couldn't sleep. Something about the way that chair was angled. It felt like someone had been sitting in it, watching, waiting. The next day, I tried calling anyone to talk sense into me. But my phone was dead, fully charged the night before. Laptop? Wouldn't turn on. The car battery? Drained. It was like something didn't want me to leave. Then I noticed a jar. One of the jars from the basement was sitting on the kitchen counter. Not broken, not dusty, just placed there. And the tag read, Isaac, 2025. That's my name. And that's this year. I ran back to the basement. Every single jar was there except for one, the one now in my kitchen. I didn't understand how it moved or what it meant, but I felt sick. Sick like something was inside me. Watching. Feeding. That night, the dream started. Flashes of my uncle screaming in that chair. Shadows surrounding him. A voice whispering in a language I didn't understand. I woke up with blood in my mouth. Nosebleed. More than I've ever had. I tried to leave the house. Couldn't. Every time I approached the front door, I felt pressure in my skull. Like something was pushing me back. Like gravity reversed. I would black out and wake up hours later on the floor. The house was keeping me. Feeding off me. I don't know how long I've been here anymore. Days? Weeks? Time doesn't work the same inside this place. The symbols on the walls are glowing now. At night, I hear voices in events. I see shadows walking past the mirror, even when I'm not in the frame. And every night, the chair is closer to the stairs. Closer to me. I found my uncle's journal yesterday, hidden under the floorboards. Final entry. The entity is stronger now. It wants youth. It wants blood. The room is its body. The chair is its mouth. I should never have opened it. But it's too late now. I hear it whispering my nephew's name. If you're reading this, and you ever inherit a house you weren't expecting, don't go. Burn it. Because some rooms were never meant to be opened. And once you open them, they remember you. Forever.